it's your boy Tatsuki here, back at it again with another new spanking what if video. But before we get into the intro, even just a quick reminder that I own nothing in these videos except my own voice and my opinions and the story. Okay? I own no pictures, I own no music or anything, so please do not copyright me. Anyways, let's get into the video. And let's roll the intro. Heyo everyone, it's your boy King. Jen. Sorry everyone, about that tiny little mishap there. I thought I paused the video. I genuinely thought I paused it. Looks like it wasn't paused. I'm, sorry. Now let's get into this video. If you did not read the title, then allow me to explain. This is what if the female Deku was the reincarnation of Optimus Prime. By the way, both Megatron and Optimus in this will be female. Okay. As we go, however, before the story, there is always the beginning. As we go to a grand battle. Now, my uncle is here, and he's a bit of a fan. He's a big fan of mine, so, yeah. Shout out to my uncle, and he has asked of me to sort of do the prologue battle, kind of like an RPG type standards. So, basically, Optimus in the battle will be a tank type character. And Megatron will be an assassin type character in this battle. as, of course, like always, Optimus lands the first blow, as Optimus basically, they're only using fists and no blasters. There's only fists and melee weapons. Okay? As Optimus basically, he rushes over to Megatron and punches her in the and basically punches her in the face. As Optimus and as Megatron basically, by the way, another thing my uncle requested was that Megatron's weapon was a staff that was basically shape-shiftable, as she would pull out a bow staff that would turn into basically, she would pull it up into two halves as they would turn into scorpion kunai, basically. You know, kunai on chain, as she would connect both the ends, and it'd basically be like a staff that is connected to, like, a quarter of a staff that's connected to two chains, kunai and chain, as Megatron would begin swinging this weapon around and rushing at Optimus. Optimus, of course, would be hit and, well, would then be pushed back just about 30 feet. As Optimus would then, and basically create a sort of light energy shield. Now, because I can't find a golden light energy shield anywhere on Google, just imagine it, okay? As he pulls out a golden energy shield and rushes at Megatron. As my uncle has declared, they're like a tank and an assassin. Now, of course, during this battle, Optimus will be just a bit slower and will be a bit slower, and his attack will be not exactly that high. The attack speed will also be slower, as in attack speed, Megatron clearly has the advantage, but, well, Optimus has a strength advantage, as the two are basically battling, and then, well, eventually the two are rolling around, say, a exploding spaceship. Yes, imagine Megatron's on base, except it's basically exploding. Imagine the Decepticon base, but exploding. As Megatron and the Autobots, and Megatron and the Decepticons are basically fighting against Optimus and the Autobots, as the two rush through some of their base and well, basically, while fighting, they're causing a ginormous scene of havoc. As Optimus basically, begins punching the crap out of Megatron, as she then reaches out her staff, as then it turns into a spear, as she begins basically using it to battle against Optimus. Now the fight would be very long and tiresome and epic, of course, as pretty much Optimus would punch Megatron off of a cliff or ledge, Megatron would fall. However, she would grab onto and they would grab onto a ledge and would basically fling themselves off the ledge and back onto the battlefield. As Megatron would slice at Optimus multiple times in the chest with the spear. However, Optimus would have more defense, more durability, but less speed. As eventually, the two are completely worn out. Now, they're both low on attack, and they're both low on health, speed, and durability. And they're on an exploding battle arena. What do? Well, of course, Optimus and Megatron. And of course, Megatron basically despawns their weapon, and Optimus takes off the sort of armored and puts away the light shield and takes off armored covering, which was making Optimus slower. As the two basically wind their fists back, as they then run at each other. As then it's basically like friggin' karate or kung fu up in here. As the two, and as Megatron, Optimus uppercuts Megatron. Megatron kicks Optimus in the chest. While Optimus is landing those good fashioned clean blows, Megatron is landing those nasty, cheaty, dirty blows. As Megatron right hooks Optimus in the leg, having him fall down, and having him fall down on one knee. As then Megatron then says, basically, Megatron raises both of their fists in the air, as she then says, as one shall, and as Optimus basically then says, gets up, winding his fist back, as he then says, one shall stand, as Megatron then says, and one shall fall, as the two's punches then collide. And I mean, seriously, the shockwave peels metal, earth, grass, and everything off of the ground. Trees uprooted from the power of this shockwave. Tornadoes started, hurricanes erupting, as lava spewing out of the ground. As then, after this one punch that was evenly matched, Megatron basically uses their leg to sweep Optimus down, as Optimus is on the floor. As Megatron basically tries to pull a Sasuke, basically tries to hit him like from above, as their fist is swirling down at Optimus, as Optimus basically pulls a Naruto versus Sasuke and uppercuts the Megatron in the jaw. Megatron is sent into a mountain, as then basically it's like the epicest Naruto versus Sasuke, a move of all time. Well, Megatron, taking the place of Sasuke, winds back their fist, and basically winds up their fist, and and is harnessing all of their strength they can into this one punch. As same goes for same goes for Optimus. As the two wind back their punches and jump, as the two fists then clash. Both fists break, and their entire body and their entire arms and bodies shatter. As it's basically like a ginormous explosion. Like death, boom. Basically, there is nothing left of them but scrap. As then we see two orbs, these orbs being their sparks. As a red orb is floating next to, and as a dark red orb is floating next to a pure blue orb. As then something unexpected happens. As something from the blue orb touches the red orb, as something from the red orb touches the blue orb. As then the two orbs basically glow, and the two orbs basically turn purple. As they then, and as the two orbs basically then float away and fly up and disappear. As now we skip to, say, year 2158. Okay? Which, this battle would have been quite a couple of years ago. About almost 100 years ago. Maybe even over 100 years. As we go to Inko Midoriya in the hospital, as she's pregnant and giving birth. As Inko basically gives birth to a child with long blue hair, blue eyes, and, well, sort of silver pieces of metal above her hair, above her head and near her ears. As now this child, basically, they would think, Hasashi would then think, did Inko cheat on me? As they do a DNA test, and it was not, and it was Hasashi's blood. As Hasashi would be completely confused, as he'd think, is this some sort of quirk? As they would basically would test her for a mutation quirk of some kind, and it would turn out negative. She was quirkless. However, do not worry, she has power. Oh, she definitely does. As this is her. No, I'm gonna kill you over. This is her. I'm someone about to die. I mode, and this is Megatron's someone about to die mode. As pretty much she is basically she is taken in. Well, not really. As to sort of change things up, I must say that Hasashi and Inko were only interested in a baby that had a quirk. as they would then say, put it up for adoption then. If it's quirkless, put it up for adoption. As he would then say, are you sure? As he then say, do I look like an idiot? As he would basically then, as the doctor would then say, fine, your loss. This, after all, quirkless or not, it's still a human being. As we go about 1 month later into an adoption center, as we see Aizawa right next. I'm basically in the adoption center. As, he was just walking by and wanted to, basically, he was walking by, having a sad day, and he wanted to see some cute, adorable kids. As he would look around and see an unnamed child with metal near her ears and head, blue eyes, and long blue hair. As he would then say, I was just here for looking, but may I adopt that one? As he would point to the baby, which he would name Izuna. I'm pretty sure Izuna is the name of Madara's brother, but there is no relation, okay? So yeah, as Izuna, as he would name her, Izuna Aizawa. As we skip to when Izuna is 4, when she would usually get a quirk. As basically, Aizawa would have prepared for if the worst came to worst. If the worst came to pass. As he would have basically prepared a sort of fail-safe for if she was quirkless. As he was planning to basically bring her to UA with him. Hold on. As he would have prepared to take her to UA with him for general studies, even if she was quirkless, just so he could keep an eye on her at all times. As the day comes and she is quirkless, or at least that's what they have pronounced, as they basically did some x-ray scans, and her skin is like a synth, and her bones are like a synth. Basically, she is it's like she's made of a synthetic metal. And instead of having normal human organs, she has, a sort of blue heart. A sort of blue heart radiating a red aura. As I'm not gonna tell you, as basically Megatron will be an OC, as she will have a red heart that radiates a blue aura. So let's go back to Izuna. As she basically looks around, as they then say, she's stronger than normal humans, but she's quirkless. As Aizawa wanted to know if the doctors lied to him or not, would basically grab a very heavy weight that barely All Might could lift. As he would say, hey, Izuna, try to lift this weight. as she would say, "Okay, Daddy," as she would lift, "Okay, Papa," as she would lift the weight up and with only one hand, as he, even knowing the sort of consequences if it turned out to be a quirk, would turn on his quirk, as then nothing would happen. As he'd then think, so she has some sort of biological strength enhancement? Weird, but it isn't a quirk. So what could it be? As Aizawa would ponder and ponder and ponder this, all day and all night, as Aizawa would basically bring his daughter to UA with him, as we skip to when she is 8. Okay? So yeah, right now she's 8. As she is on the playground basically with her, and basically showing off, as she sees a girl who looks like this. Hold on. As Izuna sees a girl being, bullied basically, as she stops showing off and walks over to the girl, as, of course, the bully is Bakugo. As Bakugo then says, "Ha, weird quirkless freak. So what if you're stronger, huh? That just means that you're another quirkless freak, just like a Una over there, being a fool and showing off her weird freakish freakness." As he then says, "See, she's right over," as he looks over and sees Izuna gone, as she turns back around and sees Izuna looking right at him. As she then says, "I'm a what? I'm a freak now, am I?" As she basically opens her, her eyes begin glowing a light blue lightning, as then the mask appears. Her hair basically is let down and covers one of her eyes. As then she summons 2 katanas out of pure energy. And she then says, "If you dare call me or anyone else a freak again, I will literally turn you into Katsuki curry sushi. Do you understand?" As Bakugo then says, "Yes. Yes, Izuna, I'm sorry for calling you a freak," as he runs away as fast as he can. As Izuna basically says, "What a jerk," as she looks back at the girl and says, "Are you okay?" As the girl basically says, "Yeah. What's your name?" "Yeah, who are you and what's your name?" As she then says, Izuna Aizawa." As she then says, I'm I am sorry. I'm just so nervous around people, and around new people. My name is My name is Galora. And I don't really have a last name, seeing as I live in an orphanage. As she then says, "Oh, well that's sad." As Izuna then smiles at Galora, as Galora then basically blushes just a tiny bit from seeing her smile. As she then says, "So, uh, um, uh, how are you doing?" As well, Izuna then says, "Good until that jerk bullied you." What do you mean by you're a quirkless freak, by the way? Just so I can know. As she would then say, "If I tell you, you'll call me a quirkless freak too." As she then says, "No, I won't." As Galora then says, "Fine, I'll tell you, but just don't laugh at me or be mean to me, okay? Or call me a freak, okay?" As she would then say, "I have insane strength. I have insane speed, and, well, I'm abnormally stealthy. I'm, well, kind of have a weird sort of body, as the doctors and everyone else I meet says, or any other professionals I meet always say. My body is like made out of some sort of synthetic metal." As Izuna would then say, "What a coincidence, so am I." As the two would basically talk, as Izuna would, as Galora would then say, "So, how, earlier when Bakugo attacked, and when that jerk attacked, what exactly did you do?" As Izuna would say, "What do you mean, what did I do?" As she would then say, "Well, your eyes glowed and this metal covering came over your face, and your hair, and that metal thing over your hair went up, and your hair flipped down, and your eyes began glowing, and these katanas appeared in your hands. And there was like this sort of deafening, terrifying aura around you." And she would then say, "Oh, that? Yeah, that's just something that happens when I think of bad things, or like terrible moments in my life. Like, basically when I'm angry." As she would, as in Galora would say, well, can you help me with that? And can you help me do that?" As Galora, as Izuna would then say, "Sure, I guess." And she would then say, "Think of one thing, the worst moment in your entire life, and then put it, and then basically tried to manifest all the emotion and rage into a physical form." As Galora would close her eyes and think, as she would think back to the day when, and back to the first day at the orphanage, when she was 4 years ago, when her parents saw she was quirkless. they drove her there and left her alone. As she was crying and hit the walls and screamed in rage and anger. And her parents just drove away. As then Galora's eyes began to glow purple, as a katana would appear in her hand, as it would be like a katana handle, a golden katana handle, as then, suddenly, from the handle, a purple fiery blade would appear, as this deafening and unholy aura would appear around her. As then Azuna would say, "Wow, looks like you can do it too." As then Galora would basically calm down, as she would say, "Wow, can I do that again?" As then, pretty much, Azuna would have then said, "Of course, now you can do it anytime you want. The first time to unlock it, you need to be angry. But now, you can do it anytime you want." As well, the two would basically, after that, begin talking for a couple of more hours. As then a jerk would appear, and as then a jerk or random extra would appear because with a fire quirk would appear. Well, no, with a wood manipulation quirk would appear. Basically, a dude with the weakest version of wood release you could imagine. As he would then say, Hey freak, it's time to go home." As the kid would then basically, he'd grab a belt out of his pocket, as he would stretch it and it would make a cracking sound. As he would then say, "You know what's gonna happen." As Galora would then say, "Sorry, I gotta go." As she would walk with the extra, and he would then use the belt and slap her with it, as she would then wince in pain. Would appear in her pissed off mode, as she would rush out of nowhere and would basically the katana would begin glowing a golden aura, like a golden flame, and she would rush in out of nowhere and basically kick the kid in the chest, as she would then say, "Don't do that again. She's just a innocent girl. She's just a innocent girl." As then he would say, "So, what's your quirk, huh? So you must have a quirk, huh? Then please explain to me why you're defending this quirkless freak." As she would then say, "For one, I am quirkless too. And for two, we are not freaks. We are merely just different." As he then say, "Whatever, freak." As he would basically punch her in the chest, sending her flying, as he'd say, "Everyone, there's a second freak. Beat her up." As right now they're playing on a park wall. They're playing on a park wall. Aizawa was at a meeting. As well, All Might was supposed to be watching them, then he debuffed. so he had to slink away. Pretty much, she would have she would have been knocked out, and her rage mode would instantly turn off, as she would been kicked and beaten up by over 10 people, all with quirks. Some sort of fire quirks, hydrokinesis quirks, kids who basically were like Killua and could sharpen their fingernails, like claws, people with sound quirks, that type of stuff. As well, Izuna would be beaten bloody and would look like she's in pain, as a blue liquid would be pouring from cuts, as this is her lifeblood. It's like a blue fire. As when it comes to, Megatron when she bleeds, and when it comes to Galora when she bleeds, it's like a red fire. As Izuna would be unconscious and being beaten up. Hold on. As the bullies are basically holding Galora back by her arms against, basically, the dude with the weak-ass wood release type quirk basically is using his wood to hold her, to basically create cuffs. As she could break this easily, but another kid with a diamond quirk is consecrating the cuffs in diamond. As she is being beaten up as well. As she isn't paying attention to the bullies beating her up, she's only looking at Izuna. As Izuna is beaten badly, and then one of the kids who has a metal quirk basically walks over to her and then says, "This is what you freaks get," as he turns his hand into a giant sword, sort of like a giant blade, or like giant kitchen knife, as he's just about to chop down. As we go to Galora's perspective, as she sees him just right about to chop down, as the blade is literally 1 centimeter away, and literally 3 inches away from her, as then her eyes begin glowing a purple fire, her blade appears, and this time a avatar surrounds her, as it is a purple demonic avatar that looks unholy. Basically, it's a giant basically imagine this dude like a see-through purple Susano, just around her. As at the speed of light, and as at the speed of sound, she just runs and basically throws all of the bullies off of her and grabs the dude with the blade with the metal quirk's hand, as she then begins crushing it, as her blade is basically glowing with a purple flame, as she then says, "This is what you get," as she then decapitates the person, and basically her hand then turns into a sort of, basically her other palm then begins glowing purple, as she basically fires a laser blast out of her palm, basically eradicating or incinerating the body, as all the others are knocked out, And she basically goes back into her weakened as she walks over to Azuna and wakes her up. And she then says, after they had their fun, they all ran off. Sorry about that, as Azuna then says, "Oh, it's okay, Galora. You'll live with jerks. It's perfectly fine." As then one kid wakes up and slaps Azuna on the face as he basically runs away. As this makes Galora a bit angry as her eyebrows tense up, but then they go back to normal. As she then says, "See ya later. See you later, Azuna." As she walks with all the other kids at the orphanage back to the orphanage. As at night, and as basically they're all talking about that, basically they're all bad-mouthing Azuna, calling her a quirkless freak of nature, a monster, something that shouldn't exist, as they then say tomorrow we should chop her up into bits and burn her. Tomorrow we should burn her at the stake and call her a quirkless freak. And then people will join in. And then next day we'll do the same thing to the other freak. As Galora is obviously hearing all of this, as that night, she basically pulls an Itachi. As she summons her purple blade and rushes in and kills everyone in the orphanage. There's running, screaming, and just death. As if you were next door, all you would hear is screaming, then a quick slice, and then more screaming, and then something that sounded like a friggin' laser cannon. Then more screaming, and screaming and running, and bones and skulls being crunched. She basically killed everyone in the orphanage. And I mean, she didn't even leave any of the workers at the orphanage left. No one was left, only her. As she would have he would then walk out of the orphanage, as she would have then said, those jerks were going to kill Izuna. No, they shall not. And they were going to harm Izuna. But of course they shall not, because now they're dead. As she then walks away from the orphanage. As we go to Izuna's perspective, Aizawa basically is staying up late, bandaging her. As she then says, as how this happened. As she then says, "I met a girl who was like me. Her name's Galora, and she's quirkless. People call her a freak like me, and she lives in an orphanage and is basically attacked by everyone in the orphanage. They also attacked us and called me a freak and tried to kill me. They knocked me out and beat me up, I guess." She then said after they had their fun, they all ran away. And they all basically left. And then one kid came back and slapped me in the face. And then Galora left. As Aizawa would then say, looks like you have a new friend. As Izuna would then say, yep. And she also shares similar power to mine. For one, she can also do the rage mode thing. As Aizawa would then say, I thought that was only something you could do. As she would then say, me too, but so can this girl. As he then say, show me this rage mode of yours. As Izuna would then say, okay. As he would basically begin glowing a golden outline. The golden katanas would spawn. Her hair would flop down. The metal piece would go up. The sort of mask would go over her face. And, well, an aura of fear, of bloodlust would surround the area. As he would then say, so what did hers look like? As she would then say, she was glowing a sort of purple aura, with a golden handle that turned into a golden and purple fire katana. Her eyes glue like purple flames, and she let off this destructive aura. It was almost like it was unholy. And it was almost exactly like mine. As Aizawa would then say, very interesting. Anyways, it's nighttime, Pumpkin, and it's nighttime, a little USA flag. I should then say, Dad, I thought I told you to stop calling me that. I'm almost 10 years old. I'm almost 9 years old. As he'd then say, I don't care, you're still a USA flag. As she would then say, ugh. Fine, Dad. As she would basically go to bed. As we go outside in the bushes. Outside of her window, as we see Galora basically stalking. As she then says, alright, let's give this a whirl. As it's raining, and he goes out walking and she basically gets her dress torn up, and her clothes torn up, and looks like she's been out there for hours. As she then begins making herself shake, and looking very weak. And like she is very ill and weak. And whimpering. As she knocks on Aizawa's door, and he basically says, yes? Is there anyone? Yes? Who's there? As she then says, right here, sir. My name's Galora. I'm sick. Do you have any place can I stay in here? As he then say, fine. As he would then say, so, you must be my daughter's friend. As she would then say, you have a daughter? As he'd then say, let me go wake her up. As he would walk up to Izuna's room and wake her up. As Izuna would basically wake up, and Aizawa would then say, honey, someone's here. As then she would basically say, huh? As she would look over and see Galora, as she'd say, Galora, how do you even find me? as Galora would obviously lie and say, they kicked me out tonight, and so I was out in the rain looking for a place, and I just came across here. I guess luck, I guess. Just luck, I guess. As she would then say, okay, so wanna go in a guest room or sleep on the couch? As then Galora would say, how about your room? As Izuna would then say, okay, blushing a bit. Now Aizawa, obviously seeing what was going on here, with his daughter blushing, and Galora wanting to sleep in his daughter's room, would basically then smirk a bit as we go into his thoughts, as he basically says, so I might have a new daughter-in-law in a couple of years. Nice. As he would then say, well, if what Izuna, as he then says, well, if what Izuna says is true, you two will make fine heroes. As she then says, yeah. And as Galora then says, heroes? As then she basically says, and as basically he says, Aizawa then says, oh yes, heroes. You know, good guys, people who stop bad guys, help citizens. As she then says, heroes. Sorry, I basically lived in a small orphanage, and I don't really know a lot. As he then says, so, if you know so much about heroes, then are you one? As Aizawa would then say, yeah. Yeah. As Galora would then say, what's your rank? Are you, like, number 1 hero? Because you seem to me like you're the kindest person I've ever met. As I would then say, number 1, no, I'm just a underground hero who doesn't really like fame, you know, like that. As he'd then say, my quirk is called Eraser. My quirk, basically, it's an erasing type quirk. I can turn off people's quirks if I hold my eyes open, if I basically look at them. The only problem is the effect lasts as long as I stare at them. And she then says, so I have eye drops for that. And so I have to get eye drops for that. As he would basically then say, anyways, good night to you two ladies. As, yeah, the two would basically curl up together, and they would basically shut the door, as Izuna would go on her bed and fall asleep, and curl up and fall asleep. And, well, Galora would wait till she fell asleep, then would get up off a spare bed they gave her, and would then basically cuddle right next to Izuna. And she would then say, such a pretty, pretty, pretty little girl. How pretty and nice and innocent. How adorable. Don't worry, little one. When we're older, I may actually have the courage to, well, ask you out. I should then say, however, of course there will be obstacles amongst the way. And, well, if there ever is any opposition towards my goals, and towards my goal, as she would then raise her hand up and face her palm towards the ceiling, as her hand would then glow, as she would say, such opposition will be met with annihilation. As she then said, anyways, good night, sweetie, as she would basically curl up right next to Azuna and fall asleep, as Azuna couldn't even hear a single thing as she was already dead asleep. Aizawa couldn't either as he was already dead asleep as well. And that's where I'm ending this part off. Hope you all enjoyed this part of what if the female Deku was the reincarnation of Optimus Prime. So yeah, hope y'all enjoyed, and please put I don't really care if you guys like or subscribe, comment even, but please just tell me some ideas you have for this series, like what types of powers you want me to give them, because of course I'll be making them overpowered as all hell. Please like and subscribe. Tell you what, if you give me, say, 30 likes before... If you give me this video 30 likes before tomorrow, I'll make part 2 tonight. If you guys give me 30 likes as soon as possible, I'll make part 2, even if it is tonight. And yeah, goodbye.